Okay, hi, this is Elliot Fishman, and we're live here. And if it looks like we're moving, we are moving. Hopkins right now is down. I'm not sure if our network's been hacked or it's just some problem, but you can't get on the network, you can't get to Epic, you can't get to anything. So I'm going to have to speak to you while holding the phone on my knee and trying not to move. So this this Facebook Live is on CME 2018-2019. And I wanted to ask the question, and I'm not sure people can respond to this, but surely they can respond after this lecture is over. And my question is, what method do you want us to provide information to you? For years, the classic way of doing things was to have CME courses. You went to Florida, you went to Orlando, or Miami, or Fort Lauderdale, or Las Vegas, or LA, or New York, or Boston, you name the places, and there was meetings there. It was run by societies, the Rankin Ray, the SAR, RSNA, every year in Chicago. And the meetings run by institutions like Hopkins. I've run 3 or 4 courses for the past 35 years. Stanford, Penn, NYU, Duke, UCSF, you name it. Everyone ran meetings. Now, one of the challenges, and I do run courses, and we have a course next weekend. I'll put a plug in, May 5 to 8th in Nashville. Should be a great meeting. Nashville's a wonderful place. I won't joke about the Waffle House, but it should be a great meeting. But what I've noticed is both at the meetings we've been running and also at the meetings I speak at, I go to meetings where it's their 25th or 35th or 40th year, and I spoke there years ago, and they would have 300 or 400 attendees, and now they have 30 or 40 attendees. And obviously, it's not because there's less information, and in fact, there's many less meetings. Many institutions have decreased the number of meetings they have. Industrial support for meetings from companies has gone down substantially. So really, it's a challenge, and the cost of meetings have gone up. At Hopkins, I look back at our meetings from 35 years ago. We charged $500. Now we charge roughly $800. 35 years, it's gone up a minimal amount. And if you look at the cost of hotels for us, just the food and beverage has gone up by a factor of 4 and 5 times. So it's harder to make money on the meetings, or forget make money, it's harder to break even. And yet, in my mind, there's more challenges than ever before in terms of what we need to know. Now, in saying that, I do understand there are other ways of getting education. In the old days, you didn't have the web. CME, look at CT as Us, for example, is just a good way of thinking about things. Every journal, radiographics, AJR, radiology now, has things in the back where you actually can answer questions and then get CME credits. So you don't need to leave your house or your living room or your kitchen to get CME credits. Now, in saying that, I'm asking the question, should meetings persist? Should we still have meetings? And is there a future for us running courses? We send out announcements. You can look at our Facebook page. CT is Us. We mail mailings to the different lists that we get, that we pay for from Rankin Ray or some of the societies. But the question is this what we should be doing? Should all of those on-site meetings be replaced by things like CT as Us or by the journals? Now, what's the disadvantage of meetings? Well, it costs more money, right? If you think about it, the average hotel is at least $300 a night, roughly. Then we try to find cheaper hotels that are still nice, get a good rate. You have to fly there in most cases, though some people can drive depending where the meeting is at. And then there's tuition and the like. So it costs you roughly for a 4-day course a couple $1,000s. Now the good thing is you typically get 20 to 30 CME credits. And the downside of going back is that you need to take time off from work. And it seems that nobody wants to take time off from work. Now, I do remember way back when, though I've always been at Hopkins, so it hasn't been that much of an impact on me perhaps, going back a couple decades, people would have contracts with a private group, and the groups would be smaller. And so what you would say is in your contract, it would be 8 weeks vacation and 4 weeks of meetings, and they'd give you a certain amount of money for the meetings. And because you were a small group, that people would basically go to the meetings because it was use it or lose it. The groups wanted you to learn, and they paid for your time and for your expenses. Now what happens with contracts, I see from our fellows, is you get 8 to 10 or 8 to 12 weeks of vacation/meeting, which means that somebody could use all their time as vacation, or they can use it as meetings. Well, most people will say, hey, I'm not taking my vacation to go to a meeting. And then for a lot of groups, they're not giving you any funds for meetings. So, for example, when you were a small group and you were 10 or 12 people, you sat around the table, you said, okay, we're going to put $20,000 for CME. It's a good use of our money. Now you're a group, which is 800 radiologists. The people in charge say, hey, 800 times 2,000, that's 1.6 million. We made about 800,000 in profit. We're not giving out the money. We'll have our own CME. You can listen to a lecture, or you can use radiographics or AJR. So what's happening is that you're changing the dynamics, because people now are not getting paid, and they're not getting the time off to go to a meeting, and so they're not going to meetings. That's the bottom line. And when I speak to people, that's what they say. And the same thing is true for both radiologists and for technologists. Now, the flip side is, why do I think meetings are good? I go to meetings, I run meetings. When you go to a meeting and you're sitting with a number of other radiologists in a lecture hall, and you're focused on listening to a really good speaker, you're really engaged. You also put aside 2 to 4 days to really focus on learning something. And just the interaction between you and the speaker, you and the other attendees, it's like being back in residency or college where you're trying to learn something, where your focus for those few days is learning. And you think about it for a second, we've always made the point that, like, our courses have 30 lectures. If you only learn one thing in each lecture, you've learned 30 things. And so you're really listening and you're thinking, you're seeing images, you're hearing discussions, you're learning about classic things. So if you look at our meeting next week, I'll be speaking about new things like cinematic rendering. I'll be speaking about oral contrast and how we use it. I'll be going through our protocols for contrast and injection rates. We'll have Brooke Jeffrey talking about pancreas. We'll have Ella Kazzaruni talking about lung screening and lung cancer. We have Ron Zagoria speaking about kidney and how you evaluate renal pathology. These are world-class experts on topics that impact you every single day in your practice. So you really need to be at those kind of lectures. I'll be speaking about 3D imaging, and I'll be speaking about adrenal, and Karen Horton will be speaking about deep learning and how to improve your practice by looking at expert opinions for how we can improve what we do. So it's not just simply, something that's a boondoggle. I think it's a very strong way of learning. But in saying that, what if people aren't going? You can't run courses unless you break even, right? And it does cost a lot of money to run courses. Some of you may not know this, but when we do breakfast at a course, for those coffee and donuts and the little things, that's like $40 or $50 a person, which is 4 days, $200. And in order to get the meeting space, you have to guarantee the hotel a certain amount of sleeping rooms. You have to guarantee a certain amount of money you're going to spend every day. And so all of this does add up, and it makes the cost of running a meeting not inconsequential. So the question I have is still, should we do these? Are we doing it correctly? Should we not do 4 days? I will experiment this coming November 15 to 17 in Las Vegas. We're running the meeting Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It finishes Saturday afternoon. You can go home on Saturday, or you can go home on Sunday. Should we have longer days but less numbers of days? Time away is critical, so are you willing to stay till 5, 6 o'clock every day rather than finishing at 12 or 1 o'clock? The question is, do people want to mix vacation and meeting together? Particularly if I say to you that, as I mentioned before, that people aren't getting specific meeting time, they're getting vacation/meeting. Are people going to be willing to take some of their quote-unquote vacation time and go to a meeting? I don't know the answer to that, But based on what I'm seeing, the answer probably is no. People are not going to give up their time to go to a meeting. People have told me that, hey, if my group does not want me to go to a meeting, they're not going to pay for it, they're not going to give me time off, then I'm not going to go. Now, are you spiting the group by not learning? Well, I think you probably are, but we need to figure out a better way. We need to figure out how to get people going to meetings again, being engaged with their fellow radiologists, talking about radiology, getting the excitement of radiology. One of the things we talk about is physician burnout. We talk about unhappiness and stress and this, that, and the other. I think one of the reasons is we don't practice radiology from a sense of joy. Going to meetings gives you a sense of joy. You feel that you're part of a bigger thing. You feel that you're learning. That the learning is important to all of us. This idea about constantly learning becomes very important. You don't want to reach the point where you're no longer learning, where working is just a drag, where you're reading case after case after case, and there's no feeling of positivity. You want to have that. I look at going to a course like going to a concert. You can listen to Bruce Springsteen, you can listen to the Eagles, you can listen to Eric Clapton on an album, and it's pretty damn good. But when you go to the concert, and it's you and 20,000 of your best friends, then you feel the moment. You feel like you're part of something bigger than you, you're part of something great, and you're hearing great music. And the same thing with lectures. I think when you're part of a bigger thing, if you're part of radiology, and you're learning how to do things, and you're emphasizing some of the questions you have, the takeaway points, and you leave at the end of 3 or 4 days with a whole lot more information than you came, and you could improve your practice. I think that's what's very exciting, and I think that's really where we need to focus. Now, I think I'm running out of time now. I have to admit, I mentioned to you that Facebook is being done on my phone, so my hand's getting tired. But more importantly, I don't have a clock because I think roughly I'm probably at about 12 or 13 minutes in. But now's a good time to ask questions. I know you, Scott, wrote down the face-to-face is better, and it's all about the funding. And I have to admit, I agree with the face-to-face as I just mentioned, but the funding is a problem. I think people are, particularly the big groups now, okay, it's all about the Benjamins. You know, we try to keep the cost as low as possible, but there is a cost to a meeting. I think it's a matter of groups need to invest. You need to invest in your employees, you need to invest in your patients, and you need to invest in radiology. Okay? Any other comments here? We have a few people from different countries I see saying hello, Italy, and I don't, it must be Cyprus. But those are the big things. And so if you don't hear the lecture now, and you hear it a little bit later, you know, you can ask me questions or make some comments and I'll respond. And here, Deborah Cooper, I've been to your Vegas meeting. Thank you very much, and it was awesome. Employers should be paying for these meetings. And I agree with that. I think the challenge is really, you know, how to get the employers to do that. It's, as I said, it's really silly on their part not to do that. But, you know, we have to deal with those things. Hopefully you can speak to your employer, whether it's the hospital or the radiologist, the radiology group, and just make a commitment to improve the quality of care. It's a very cheap way. Every industry does it. You need to have continuing medical education. If you don't do that, our patients will not be scanned. Things will not work as well as it could. And with that, I thank everybody for their attention. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Hopefully everyone's going to rush and come to Nashville next week. And if they do, we'll see you there, and have a great day. Bye-bye.